Hi everybody, Adrian here and welcome to the Life Mastery Show here midday Thursday in Australia. Absolutely fantastic to be here again, and once again I'm in my studio on the Gold Coast in Australia, and I'm really looking forward to today's show. And a little bit about the show today. I want to bring in a little bit of a topic today, and that's all around spiritual development and the pathway to spiritual development. So a lot of the show today I'm hoping will be on questions and insights and some information and some sharing around what it is to be in spiritual development. What does it actually mean? Because there's a lot of work around in the world now in that spiritual space. We're in that sort of new age space of spirituality, but what does it really mean to be in a place of spiritual development? What are we doing each day to do the study? What are we doing each day to commit to being in that space of spiritual development? So happy to answer any questions today on any topic with regard to life mastery, but in specifically, let's see if we can hone in on the topic of spiritual development, because last week some of those questions were raised and I want to further that a little bit this week. So just remembering with my show here, I'm not working in that psychic space, so I'm not working with any mediumship of bringing messages through from the other side. This is about you really getting clear on your question, me getting clear about supporting you with those questions. And I say today, let's see if we can focus in a little bit on spiritual development and see if we can support you in some way to deepen that journey for you. So a little bit about Adrian, if you haven't tuned in and listened to me before. So first and foremost, I'm a father of 6 adult children from a blended family. And I'm married to my beautiful wife, Arlene. And just recently, a few months ago, moved up to the Gold Coast in Australia. So I work in the psychotherapeutic space as a psychotherapist, counsellor, work as a coach, and of course as the life mastery expert. And I have my finger in quite a few pies. I'm pretty eclectic. I like to do lots and lots and lots of different things. I don't like to be stuck in just one area. So I work in many, many different areas in personal and spiritual and professional development. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially, and in relationship, and many other ways. So very happy for you to post a couple of questions on here. So if you just type in a question in the chat line, and then I will endeavour to answer any questions that come up today. So if anybody has a question, please pop it in there, and we can get the show rolling, because with you, this is how the show actually gets the magic happening, because it's about communicating, it's about connecting with each other in a spiritual community. And the way for that happened is for you to ask and for me to do my best to answer any questions for you to the best of my ability. So if you do have any questions, please fire away. Meanwhile, while I'm just waiting on, just a little bit, I'm also an author of several books. I have my Where Am I Right Now book that's just about to be republished this year with a new bit of editing and a few additional chapters. And also I have my Where Am I Right Now Wendy book, which is a children's book, and also co-author of several other books as well. And I've got a drawer full of books that I've been working on for many, many years that are slowly being published as well. So please do ask away your questions if there's anything there for you. I see there's a few people tuning in, listening in. Even just to say hello, just type in a little hello, say who you are, maybe where you're from, and what your connection is to spiritual development. What are you doing personally, or what support would you like to further that spiritual development? There's a few resources on my website, adrianhanks.com, and if you go along to there, you can look, there's lots of different videos and lots of support in there. And if you go to the store, to the shop, there's a few things on there that might support you, a few little freebies, and a few things obviously for purchase as well. I do have my life mastery programs available too, some online programs, and of course I have my mastermind program running as well, and I've got another one starting currently. So lots and lots of things happening, lots of support for people, and very happy for you to have a free 30-minute consultation with me to ascertain where you are right now in your life and how I might be able to support you in that as well. So can you tell me how my love life is going to improve? Okay, Cynthia Duckworth, hi, great question for you. Once again, I'm just getting really clear about I'm not doing any psychic work. I'm not bringing anything through from that psychic realm of past ones passed over. So I would ask you, Cynthia, to get more specific on the question. So tell me how my love life is going to improve. Well, Cynthia, to answer that quite simply, that is entirely up to you on a couple of things. One is, what's your vision? Well, how do you actually want your love life to be? How are you really clear on your vision of the person you want to be with? What you actually want in your relationship? How to improve that? Because it all starts with the vision. I say we have our vision, and then we have the plan, and then we have the action. But it's very good to get clear about the vision, Cynthia. What do you actually want in terms of your love life? What are you actually after for yourself? So get really clear on that question first. What do I want from my love life? What do I want in relationship? And if you're currently with a partner, then it's about sitting down with your partner and talking about how to actually create that in your relationship. And if you're not in a relationship, what sort of person do you want in your life to create that relationship? So it comes back to you. This is about empowering you to get really clear on what you want in your relationship. So I hope that helps. So Jody, I need help with positive direction, please. So Jody, once again, let's get really more specific on the question, because it's a very generic question. A positive direction in what? Is that in your physical, your emotional, your mental, your spiritual relationship, in the direction of your spiritual life and your financial life? So let's get really, really clear on the questions, please, ladies and gentlemen, because I want to help you, but I can't help you unless it's clear, specific questions, and then we can get right down to the root cause of what is actually there and what's needed to change. Hello, Adrian. Can you tell me how soon I will recover from my hip operation? Okay, Terry, same thing. I'm not tuning in from that psychic place. Okay, it's about you. How well will I recover from my hip operation? Terry, absolutely entirely up to you on how you look after yourself, what you do physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, what support systems you put into place, what sort of food you're putting into your body, what sort of energy work you're getting. So it's about getting clear of all toxic overload. Is about getting rid of any toxicity that's coming into your body, whether that's through food, through drink, watching your drug intake, whether that's prescribed or non-prescribed, getting really clear on good, healthy, organic food, getting the support you need, getting some Reiki, getting some massage, getting some psychotherapeutic work if you need it. So this is all about empowering you, Terry. If you want to get really well in your hip operation, doing everything you can 100% to make that healing good for you. So it comes down to you. Absolutely comes down to you to get the support you need as well. Are there any surprises in store for me for the remainder of 2019? Julie? Yes, hopefully. Because surprises are wonderful. I love getting surprises from a positive perspective, and sometimes we get them and they're not so positive, but they are what help us to grow in life. So I'm not tuning into that psychic stuff now, Julie, like everybody else. I'm not going to say, yeah, in 3 weeks' time, somebody's going to knock on your door and it's going to be the love of your life, or any of that stuff. This is about you. And if you're looking for a surprise, what sort of surprises are you looking for, Julie? Because maybe you can preempt that as well. What would you love to receive in terms of surprise? Is it physical, emotional, mental, spiritual? Is it financial? What would you love to receive in terms of a surprise? And put it out to the universe. Please surprise me with this, because this is what I really want in my life. It's a really good positive thing to have. Do your vision board. You can see over my shoulder here, this is my vision board that I'm working on right now, and I'm trying to create more things in my life. And when they come, yeah, it's still a surprise. Even though I'm asking for it, it's still a lovely surprise when it arrives. It really is. I had something arrive in the post this morning. I ordered it a few weeks ago, and it arrived. They had a little pendant locket, and what a beautiful surprise it was this morning to get this in the post. It's just a little thing that's going to hang around my neck with an image in it. And but it was a surprise. I love getting surprises. So sometimes we have to set the surprises up, like I did by actually ordering the very thing I wanted. Tara, hi, feel like I'm transitioning and developed at light speed. Feel my calling in healing and shamanism. I'm on the right track. I've let go of a lot lately that hasn't been serving me. Yeah, Tara, when you get that calling for your healing and shamanism, one thing I would say, and I'm clear with this with all my students, all my clients, everybody I work with, get yourself a teacher. I'm not suggesting that necessarily has to be me, but if it is, I'm happy to work with you. But if you're going to enter into any shamanic work, any deep healing work, it's really, really, really challenging to do it by oneself, because people carry knowledge, people carry experience. And I know we can download some of that, but when we have somebody to work with in terms of being a student, you can reach the highest level because you're a little bit less full of ego, and I mean that with all sincerity, in the journey. And I know for myself, having the teachers guide me, having my teachers work with me through the last 25 years to help me and support me in my teaching to become a teacher, to be a life mastery expert. It's really, 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 really important. There's a lot of people out there doing this work, with all due respect, without having that teacher, without having that guidance, and they get stuck. You know, they really get stuck physically, like they get sick. Mentally, things happen. Psychically, things happen because they don't have the person to hold them with experience to help them with any challenges that come up. So with all due respect, if you're going to get into that, please, 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 I'll say if it's me, wonderful, love to work with you. But if it's not, find a teacher of credit to work with, like check them out, absolutely 100%. Check out everything they do in their daily life. Are they walking their talk? Are they trained themselves? Who were their teachers? What's the lineage? Yeah, really, really important, because when people get this calling, it's wonderful to get the calling. I had it myself and I get called into other things, but I'm really clear on the journey going forward. What is that journey I need to do in the truest integrity to bring the truest calling through for myself? So I hope that helps, Aaron. If you want to have a conversation with me, please go to my website, adrianhanks.com, PM me, let's have a conversation, 30-minute consultation to ascertain where you are right now and how you can go forward in life. So Cynthia, I want to find out if my friend is getting to love me like I love him. Well, Cynthia, I would suggest simply sit down and have a conversation. So I'm not going to preempt that for you by tuning into that psychic space of thinking I know what he's going to say to you. Yep, it's up to you to find that space, create that space, and just let that person know how you feel about them, and then ask them really clearly, you know, have we got something between us? Are we going to be in a relationship? And what does that relationship look like if it does? That's the empowering part. Because if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, a great way to begin a relationship is with clear, conscious communication. So it sounds like this will be an amazing place for you to start, Cynthia, to have a conscious communication with this person, because that's a great way to get a sense of what the relation potentially could be like if you have the courage and the vulnerability to step into some conscious relationship education. So I hope that helps you. So Rachel, I'm in the process of manifesting a move. It feels a bit stretchy, and I'm going into the rental space and almost leaving my 20-year son to stay in a current home. It feels good. There again with me, it's also doubted. Yeah, look, moving's a big one. I've just moved to the Gold Coast 4 months ago from Sydney, and previous to that I was in Brisbane and moved to Sydney. Previous to the Brisbane move I was in Byron Bay, and previous to that I was somewhere else. I was in Africa for a couple of years. So I've moved about a lot over the last few years. Moving can be a big challenge, and what I'd say to you on that is get really clear of where you want to go and what it is you want to create in that move. Like, get your vision board, get your vision really clear on what that move may look like, and get really clear for yourself on understanding that. What we did with our move to the Gold Coast was we did some energy work, we did some muscle testing, some pendulum work to ascertain where the best place was. We actually got a map of Australia, East Coast, between Byron Bay and Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast, and worked out exactly where we wanted to be. And then I was just Googling, looking, and I came across a word and a place in Coomera, where I'm living on the Gold Coast, on the Genesis estate. And I just finished reading Genesis by Rudolf Steiner, who's one of my teachers, and something gelled, and I thought, that's the place to move to. That's where I'd like to be. And we've moved here. I don't know how long that's going to be for, but right now it feels okay for the short term for me to be in. So just getting clear on what that place looks like for you. And yeah, there can be a fear about moving, but the beautiful thing about moving that I found is you can have a really good sort out. Like, we got rid of 90% of all our material items in Sydney to move here on the Gold Coast, and we started afresh with that minimal perspective. We went and brought, you know, new furniture, new different things we needed. So I had an amazing life clear out, and that felt fantastic. So that could be something to look forward to in your move, is to having a bit of a clear out from all those things that no longer serve you or no longer are needed in your life. So yeah, Julie, thank you too. Jen, I want to move house and have a space for an art studio. Can you see it happening sooner rather than later? I can see it happening absolutely straight away, Jen, if you put the energy into it and put the focus into it, because it's all about you. It's all about how are you going to vision this, how are you going to plan this, and how are you going to put this into action. So yeah, it can happen really fast, but it's about how much energy you put into it and how much energy you have your vision, and then your plan, and then your action. So like, do you know where to move to, when you're going to move, have you got a date in mind, is it in your diary? Just a little bit of a fun story for you is we had put our notice in. We were renting in Sydney, we're renting up here in on the Gold Coast, and we gave our notice in Sydney, and we said, like, we have a month to find a place. And we left Sydney, the removal truck had left, we were behind it, we were in Coffs Harbour for the night in a hotel on the way up, staying, and we were en route to the Gold Coast with 2 or 3 possible rentals that had not come through. And we got a phone call in Coffs Harbour from the house that we actually visualised, the one we wanted. It was the one we kept saying, that's our house, that's our house, that's our house, we know it's the one. But the real estate agent couldn't get in contact with the owner to have a conversation. So we drove with blind faith, sort of, with faith, from Sydney to the Gold Coast, not knowing where we were going to move to. Absolutely didn't know where we were going to move to until we were in Coffs Harbour, and we said, okay. So we stayed with a friend in Tweed on the way up for 2 nights because we couldn't get the house straight away, and then we moved in. So we were clear, we had a vision of where we wanted to be, and we actually got the house that was the one we wanted. So one has to sometimes put in a bit of faith into the universe of what one wants, and we certainly did, and got totally supported. And then we're in the right place, in the right time for, I'm not quite sure how long, but it's certainly serving us right now. So hope that's a bit of an inspirational story for you in trusting the universe in things you want. And you know what? Whatever would have happened in that time was still actually okay. It really was. It was about totally dropping into the letting going, into the trusting process. So quite a bit of a fun journey. I didn't get stressed about it. It was like, okay, that's where we're at right now. The removalist has got a truck full of possessions. Thankfully, it wasn't a lot because we'd had a 90% clear out before leaving Sydney. We had a 3-day garage sale and went to Vinnie's and had friends coming over and collecting things. So it was quite a fun process. It really, really was. So look, let's tune in again. If you have any more questions about your spiritual development journey, that's really what I want to focus on today, because I'm a great believer in having a clear pathway forward in one's spiritual development. And I'll give it a bit of a story for it, a bit of an analogy. And I don't, this is not meant to offend, but it's a bit of clarity around going forward in one's spiritual path. I'm a great believer in finding some pathway that one sticks to for a certain amount of time. And I'm always saying that's a minimum of about 5 years to go down the rabbit hole with that pathway. Because I'll give you an example. If you go and study something for 12 months, you basically learn the basic language of that modality, of that pathway, of that spiritual path. And you get to know a little bit about it. You sort of read, who was the founder, who started it, when did it start, what books are out there to read. And it's really hard to read any text in 12 months and really study anyway. But you can find out something about the history of the organization or the pathway or the modality, and then step into it. And you get to sort of base, you get to level 1 in about 12 months. And then you go into the second year. And it's a bit like an apprenticeship. You learn the tools and you learn how to sharpen a chisel and hit a hammer if you're going to be a carpenter in the trade. And then after the 3rd year, you start to make a few bits of furniture. And in the 4th year or 3rd year, you complete, and then you make your masterpiece. That's the old way of getting through a process of the apprenticeship. You had to make something to give to the master to show him you were ready to step away from him and to become in that trade, like a carpentry or such. And it's a bit like the spiritual work for me as well. It's about doing a certain length of time in the study and in the application. So you get a little bit in the 1st year, a bit more in the 2nd year, a bit more in the 3rd year. And when you get up to 4 or 5 years in the study of anything, whether that's spirituality or whether that's a trade or whatever it is, you start to go down the rabbit hole a little bit and go to the next levels. You start to incorporate it in your life a little bit more. It becomes part of your daily life. And then, of course, you go to 5 years, 7 years, and then you get to the 10-year stage, and you start to master a few things after 10 years. And then after 15 years, quite a lot more mastery. And then one starts to get into that teaching space, usually after about 15 years. And I'm talking about real mastery teaching. Yeah, not somebody who's just done a course on the weekend then goes to teach it. That's a little bit different. People still learn from you, but it hasn't been part of your daily life. You haven't imbued it. You haven't lived it for many, many years to really fully understand it. And then, of course, after 20 years, that's when I call somebody on their way to mastery. It's when somebody's been doing something for 20 years. And then anything on that is absolutely beautiful to engage with people who've been on a journey for more than 20 years in their modality, in their spiritual path, in their trade. And you see that it comes across in a different way. And partly that's because the ego's been let go of to some degree, because now it's the mastery process. It's not about the ego process. And then 25 years, 30 years, 50 years, it goes on and on. I've got some wonderful teachers who have been doing certain things for 20 or 30 or 40 or sometimes 50 years, and it's just beautiful to sit in that presence of that teaching. So in terms of my personal journey of my spiritual path, obviously it started many years ago. It started when I was a child. I had spiritual experiences and saw spirits and connected to other realms, but my knowledge of my journey, the naming of my journey, was just over 25 years ago. When I came across a teacher called Rudolf Steiner, and I started to follow the principles of anthroposophy, which is what Rudolf Steiner calls his spiritual path. So I've been on that path of anthroposophy now for 25 years. It's my daily life. It's what I do. It's how I bring my psychotherapy work forward from my meditations. It's mostly from that. So I have a pathway, a lineage, and that lineage goes back thousands of years. It's a Rosicrucian path, so I can find out the history of that Rosicrucian path. I can look at the masters that came before Steiner, who were his teachers. I can look at the reincarnations of the beings that come through to keep supporting that Rosicrucian stream. So it's a very, very old, ancient stream that I've linked into, and then brought it into the 21st century, into a modern way of teaching. So I have an absolute clarity on my pathway. And I say to people, if you can find that clarity, if you can have that pathway for yourself in terms of your own spiritual development, it's a very, very empowering thing to have. Because when you speak to somebody about that pathway, you have years of experience to draw upon, to share upon the wisdom, the insights, the experiences of crossing over into the spiritual threshold by understanding some of the texts that are written by the teachers. I'm currently reading the Karmic Relationship Lectures by Steiner that were written 80 years ago. And I'm reading it now for the second time. And I'm getting so much depth out of that. Rereading. Because now I'm getting a deeper understanding of the laws of karma. Because there's a lot of it in the New Age world about karma and dharma and the Akashic record. But they're just words. Generally, and a lot of the time, unless somebody's done the real depth of that work for many, many, many years to actually, understand what the Akashic record is, to actually know where it's from, what it's from, how it was formed, how you can download it. So I'm always cautious of people I work with that they have at least for me, 15 or 20 years of experience in the field for me to go to them as a teacher. And that's mostly because I'm a teacher myself of 25 years. So I'm looking for that next level of experience. Yeah. So not anthropology, anthroposophy. Yeah, anthroposophy. So anthro, you got that bit right, which means man or mankind or humankind. And then anthroposophy, Posophy. So anthroposophy really just means the study of mankind. Yeah, the study of mankind, anthroposophy, and the wisdom of Sophia. Yeah. So anthroposophy. If you go to my website, adrianhanks.com, and go into the menu there, you can actually see there's some writings in there around my journey of anthroposophy and Rudolf Steiner. And it's a great pathway for me. A lot of my children went to a Steiner school. I've been working with biodynamic agriculture and gardening for the last 20 plus years. The medicinal side of anthroposophy, the spiritual side of anthroposophy, the study. I'm actually in a study group. I have been for many, many years. around anthroposophy. I've been to Switzerland a couple of times to the Centre of Anthroposophy, which is in Basel in Switzerland. And of course, my own writings in my own book are very much stemmed from that knowledge of anthroposophy and the current thinking around that. And it's really exciting for me to know that I've been in something, because I'm now well past just the beginning stages. Anthroposophy, yep, absolutely, Jen, that's the one. Well, correctly spelt, yep. So just a bit of back history on that. Rudolf Steiner was part of the Theosophical Society way back, 100 years ago with Annie Besant, and was the secretary in Berlin for the Theosophical Society. And there were some certain things that he did not agree with some of the teachings of what they were bringing forth. So he stepped away from the Theosophical Society and set up, if you like, his own movement, his own journey through anthroposophy, which still had many of the learnings of theosophy, but there were a few fundamental differences in what was being spoken of in terms of the spiritual development. And that's a study in itself. I won't go into that today because this is not the space of it, but it's fascinating to understand the history of the breakaway of the Theosophical Society for Steiner into anthroposophy. There's lots I still read in theosophy, and there's some great text in there, but there's a couple of fundamental differences in some of the teachers they were bringing through and some of their ideas around that. So quite interesting, I'd say. Having been in anthroposophy now for 25 years, I've sort of gone down that rabbit hole in a very deep way. And I'd invite you to look at your spiritual path as a long-term investment. So not to hop from one study to another. Although I still go and study other things, I'm a little bit versed in Buddhism, I'm a bit versed in the Catholicism, I'm a bit versed in other areas. It's not my main path, but I'm happy to look at others to get comparisons, to get the parallels. And I think that's important. But to find one's path, because it means one can find the right meditations that link into that pathway, find the history of that, find the language of that. And it's a very important and powerful process for me. So, yeah, Michelle, hi, always. So the question I would like to pose for you is, have you named your spiritual path? And not in a generic way, like, I'm into nature study. Or, I'm into spirit. Because that's so generic. So if you're on a spiritual path, can you be very clear on it? What guidance, what teachers? Where's the lineage? Who are the teachers before you? Where are you getting your guidance from? How are you ascertaining that knowledge is actually correct? Because if we open ourselves up to spirit, it's a very dangerous thing to do unless we can be really clear on what we're bringing in. And it's like having the filter. What beings are we letting in? What information are we letting in? Can I get really clear on that? Have I got my protection around me, my boundaries around me? Do I understand the guardian of the thresholds? About traversing into that spiritual world, Can I truly meet those guardians? Can I truly get access into the spiritual world? Because unless you're going through those guardians of the threshold, the guardians of the spirit world, that, are there to protect us, by the way, then it's not the spiritual world, it's what we call the astral world. And there's a lot of confusion with people on, getting involved in that colourful, glitzy astral space than traversing into the spiritual world where we don't take the ego. Two very different places. And for a lot of people, unless one is versed in that, unless one has the teacher to explain that, it's easy to get confused with the two. So I won't go into that too much today, but I do want to talk about spiritual development and spiritual path today, because it's a really important topic, particularly in this day and age. Edgar Cayce, I found to be informed. Edgar Cayce, absolutely, some amazing work from Edgar Cayce, brought through lots and lots of clarity. I've studied a little bit of Edgar Cayce. A good friend of mine is actually follows Edgar Cayce a lot. He actually goes to the States. He's been to the Edgar Cayce Museum, and he tunes into Edgar Cayce from a spiritual teaching perspective. So I know a little bit. And there's some things in there that don't gel with me. And I think that's important too, that you don't always agree with the teacher. There's some things that Rudolf Steiner brings through as my teacher that it's not that I disagree with him. It's just I have a slightly different opinion or a different take on it. So I go and do my own research to either match his findings or to find my own way of supporting my belief in that. Because it's a different space now. Like, this is 80 years on, and things do change. Life does change. Life does evolve. So I like the evolvement of spirituality as well. So it's great to have a lineage, and we can link back to lineage, but I think any spiritual pathway needs to also evolve. And I'm a pioneer. I like to pioneer. I've done that in several aspects of Steiner's work myself. I've challenged some of his concepts. I've changed a few recipes, if you like, or thoughts for my own. And I share those now, and I share that from having the knowledge of what he says or he brings and what I bring through my knowledge as well. So it's good to challenge it, and to challenge some of what our teachers share with us sometimes as well, but not from the ego, but from deeper study. Aristotle, of course, Aristotle and many other teachers. So I'd say, Michelle, Aristotle, what do you know about him? Do you know his history? Do you know his doctrines? Do you know who his teachers were? Do you know possibly who he has been in previous incarnations or in these incarnations, and where he's still on the planet, and all those questions? And go and study Aristotle for 10 years or 20 years and really get to know and understand the teachings, because we can touch on the teachings of Aristotle or other teachers and know it a little bit and share it a little bit. But if we really want to get to understand the true philosophy and teachings of our teachers, it's a study. There's a great book that I love. One of my favorite books, and I use this in my mastermind groups, is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He went and did his research for 25 years before he wrote this book. Can you imagine? 25 years of researching people before he wrote the book. He committed 25 years, and then when he was ready, he wrote the book. So he had an absolute thorough understanding of what he was going to write. Incredible, absolutely incredible. Yeah, Rudolf Steiner, I'll Google him. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he died in 1925. He was an Austrian, lectured, wrote over 30 books, gave thousands and thousands of lectures, set up obviously was instrumental in the biodynamic movement, the Steiner schools, medicine, movement, eurythmy, speech, and many other things. He was an incredible seer, tuned in very deeply to his spiritual guides. Of course, one of his strongest guides and one of his biggest guides who guided Rudolf Steiner was the Archangel Michael. That's who I tend to work with, that energy of Michael. It's the lineage of what I work with. But it's not just about saying, well, Michael's my guide. Can you write a paper on Michael? Can you write a thesis on it? Can you write something and really get an understanding of what an archangel is? Do you know the hierarchies of, the angels and the archangels, and the next level of the thrones and the and all the other levels through the spiritual hierarchies, and where the archangels fit into that? So a study in itself. And you won't get that if you just study something for 6 months or 12 months. It's like a deep understanding of the spiritual realms, getting right into the exousiae and the different aspects of the human beings and how they can control humans and work with humans and have things happening on the planet and galactically. It's a fascinating study, but it's not something you do in the first few months of any spiritual journey, because in the first years you're only learning the basic ABC. So I hope I'm inspiring you to find a spiritual path, to name that spiritual path, to jump on, get your teachers, get your study. I'd say to people, don't have a room full of books or 300 books on different spirituality, because it'll all be the same beginning text. So pick up a book or 2 or 3 books and study them for 10 years. Think and Grow Rich has been a 10-year study. The books I'm reading of Steiner, I've been reading for 25 years. I'm picking them up again and again and redoing the study. I have the same meditations that I do every day to deepen the meditation. So repetition is a very powerful tool. So repeating the reading of a text or a book or a verse, going to the same study groups over and over and over and again, then learning to actually be the teacher and bring that text and those learnings forward. Because when one becomes a teacher of something, it's a true recognition that you understand the very thing you've been studying for many years. So now I'm teaching many aspects of what I've been studying over the years from the knowledge I now have from all those years. So if you want to be a teacher, please, go and study, get your teachers, get knowledgeable, and please no guesswork. There's a lot of people out there, with all due respect, doing some guesswork And it's a bit dangerous. And when you're working with people's lives, and this is like real life stuff, when you're working with people's lives, be authentic, be real as much as one can, like really get to helping people in an authentic way. And that comes with knowledge and wisdom and understanding. And there's a lineage for me in that as well. So I don't like reading books. Michelle, I'd be saying why. Books are where the knowledge lie. And when you have a teacher who has written something profound in a book and you study, so don't read a book, study a book. It's very different. I read, but I study. I can read Think and Grow Rich, I can read Knowledge of the Higher Worlds by Sana, but when I study it, it becomes part of my study that's different than just reading. I read novels, I study personal development books. There's a very, very big difference. So I say to people, when I get people to get my book, I say, don't just read my book, study my book. And if I'm asking you to do a particular exercise, like if I'm asking you to go and work with the platonic solids, don't just look at the pretty pictures on the page. Don't look at the pretty pictures. Actually, go and get your clay and make the platonic solids. Go and make a dodecahedron. Actually go and make a cube in clay and feel it and study it. And look at all the vortices and all the other things that actually are created in there. Because when you start to understand sacred geometry, you can start to understand the build-up of the human being a little bit as well. So it's very much interlinked. So, if you're, Michelle, great, if you're struggling with study, what's the struggle? Actually name it for yourself. Maybe there's an old story in there from childhood about, a teacher or a study or a way of studying. So I challenge what's the blockage? What's the saboteur happening in your subconscious mind that's stopping you studying? Because when one studies, it's amazing for the mind. The physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. So if we want to get into a mental capacity, study is one of the greatest ways to expand our mental awareness. It really, really is. So, anybody else in here is the same thing, Michelle. Learning difficulties, overcome them. Name the difficulty. I work with people with dyslexia. Find a way, dyslexia. First thing to do with dyslexia is change your diet. If you're on excuse the French, if you're on a shit diet and you're dyslexic, change your diet. Stop putting nonsense and rubbish into your body. And no Coca-Cola, no drugs, no alcohol, organic food. And it will change. I've worked with people, my wife works with people, people with dyslexia. Not saying it completely gets lost, but if we want to put fuel into the system, it will help. So learning difficulties can be changed. They can absolutely be changed. Studying, learning, go and study your learning difficulty for 6 months. What are you actually challenged in terms of the difficulty? Name the difficulty. And I'd say this with all due respect, sometimes I like to positively challenge people because we have a story that I have a learning disability. Well, what is that story? How can you change that? So you can read a book, so you can study a book, so you can dive deeper into your spiritual development. Because it's very hard to do spiritual development without reading, without studying, without being part of a group, without having a teacher. It really is. So Michelle, with all due respect, what is your learning difficulty? Can you name it for yourself? Because the first level of awareness is naming it. Name it. And once you've named it, then you can make the plan of how to make changes. How do you make changes? What do you need to do? What's the plan of action? Because if you really want to get on board with your spiritual development, study is a big part of it. If you want to go and study the Bhagavad Gita, it's hard to study that without reading the text and understanding the history and the karmic stories behind that. Very, very powerful. If you're a Christian, it's very hard to be a Christian without understanding the concept of what actually has been written in terms of the history of Jesus. So sometimes one has to, read to understand the history, or sit and let somebody orate it to you. So I hope this is inspiring for you. I love to inspire people on their personal and spiritual pathways, on their development. And oftentimes it does not come without a challenge. Because spiritual development is one of the hardest journeys on the planet. one of the hardest journeys on the planet. Because when we study it, then we have to embrace it and bring it into our lives. Bring it into our life. To live the concept. To live spirituality. Because we can all talk about being spiritual. I can have that conversation every single day with 100 people. But what about living a spiritual life? And what does that mean for you? Because for me, it's going to be different. What do I need to bring into my life to know for myself, not what others think about Adrian living a spiritual life? That is not really important. Unless somebody's checking me out to work with me, of course, then they need to know a little bit because they want to say, well, let's check Adrian out. Is he walking his talk? And as much as possible, I hope I do. I'm human too, so I have my foibles, I have my challenges, and I don't always get it right. But I'm clear on my pathway. I'm clear on my lineage. I'm clear on my teachers. I'm clear on what I bring to teach. So it's important for people to understand what I'm doing, but more importantly, it's important for me to know that I'm walking my talk for me, so that I can be authentic for me. That's the important part. So I hope that's inspiring for you to be authentic for yourself, to get clear on your spiritual path. Can you name your spiritual path? Can you be clear on it? Hi, Joe. So Joe got a question. Anybody else got a question there? I hope I'm sort of bringing some depth to this today. I just feel like in a super passionate mood today. Yeah. So Michelle, I love to follow the spiritual 7 principles. Okay. Can you name the 7 principles? Do you know? Because when you say the 7 spiritual principles, from which teacher? Because there's many principles of spirituality. So are you clear on the teacher, who brought them through, what they mean? Have you studied them? Do you work with them? Is it a daily routine? Where did that teacher actually get them from? Who was his or her teacher? Yep. Because there's lots of principles around spirituality. So are you clear on the 7 principles that you're speaking of, Michelle? Can you name them? Are you working with them daily, weekly? Which ones are you struggling with? Because I know with the principle of spirituality for myself, some of them I struggle with. Some of them are challenging for me some days, or some weeks, or some years, or some incarnations. Yeah. Yet spiritual is church. So who set the church up? Who's the ministers? Who are their teachers? All those questions. For me, they're important, so that I'm not in that blind faith place of just following somebody because they're a nice person. That's all well and good, but what's their lineage? What's their wisdom? How long have they been teaching? How long have they been studying? Because any teacher, for me, if they hadn't done their study for 10 or 20 years as a student, then for me, I don't engage that person as a teacher, because I haven't done their due diligence. From my perspective, this is personal, as a student first. Because to become a teacher, one really has to be a student. That's my personal evaluation. So spiritual churches are great, and there's millions of them across the planet. So, who are the founder? Why has it been set up? How has it been set up? And what principles? All those questions. So they're great questions. But, do your due diligence, do your research. Be really clear on that spiritual path. Which beings are coming into the church, which angels or spirit beings are present. And can you be sure that they're the only ones that are present, etc., etc. I would like you to name the 7 spirituals. Yeah, so if that's Joe, if that's the question from Michelle of the 7 principles, I can't answer that question because I'm not quite sure what 7 principles that she's speaking about. But for me, when I work in my spiritual text, I do work with principles of spiritual development, and I'm actually running a course, an online course. It's starting in a couple of weeks' time on spiritual development, and really happy for people to jump on that and do a 7-week course with me. So you can PM me, I'll send you information. If you go to my Facebook page or jump on my website, adrianhanks.com, you will see on there I've got the 7 conditions of spiritual development. The 7 conditions of spiritual development from the lineage of anthroposophy and Rudolf Steiner. So they're the 7 conditions from the lineage of what Rudolf Steiner has brought together from his research, his work, his teachers, his masters of over hundreds or possibly thousands of years, from the lineage of working in the Rosy Crucian or the Rosy Cross stream. So they're very practical steps, they're daily exercises, and it's about bringing oneself into alignment with the 7 principles or the 7 parts of the development of spiritual practice and the spiritual pathway. And I'll be running that course starting in a couple of weeks' time. Go to my website, have a look at that. And it's an online course on Zoom for a group of people who want to do that journey once a week over 7 weeks. And there'll be some homework to do, there'll be some exercises to do, some meditations to drop into, and some self-evaluation. So anybody listening in who would like to know more about that 7-week online program, jump along to my website, adrianhanks.com. If you'd like to have a conversation with me, then please just PM me or contact me as well. So it's a really, really good. It's the basic structure of my lineage of anthroposophy in learning some concepts and some principles about being spiritual or being on the spiritual path. And it's, they're really, really worth knowing. And if it's not that one, go and find another set of principles, some other spiritual pathways. But this could be a good starting place for many people, or a place for people to jump onto to start that journey. Yeah, personal responsibility, Michelle, is a huge one. Yeah, Joe, it is good. If you want to have a conversation, please just PM me, Adrian Hanks on Facebook. You can friend me on there, or go to that website, adrianhanks.com. You can read more about me, about my journey, and see what I'm going to bring over those 7 weeks on the journey. So there's lots and lots and lots of things to understand and know about. So just asking the question out there for anybody, any more questions you have on spiritual development? Any other questions on spiritual development that you'd like answered, and I'll see what I can do for you. It's a big, big topic. It's a massive topic. And for me, spiritual development is a life journey. It's not something that one just picks up and jumps off. I say for me, it's, once somebody's on that spiritual carousel, you just stay on it for life and just keep going, because it's an incredible ride. And for me, it's like driving a car. I have my 4 wheels for stability, the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. And a big part of what's missing from what I believe on the planet right now is the spiritual path, the spiritual consciousness, the spiritual morality, the walking one's talking spirituality. How am I communicating and connecting to the next human being that I meet? Because that's the measure for me of my spiritual path. Am I in reaction, projection, judgment, fear, doubt, hatred of that person I meet? Or can I bring in my spiritual principles in that meeting of another human being? Particularly if they push my buttons. How am I relating to them as a spiritual being, as a soul being? They're the lessons. For me, they're the daily lessons. And people push my buttons all the time. But it's how I respond to that rather than react to that. For me, that's a good measure of my spiritual journey. And thankfully, it gets better. I'm in less reaction and less judgment these days than I used to be, because I'm doing more work. I'm doing a lot more work on that aspect of the spiritual journey. One must be aligned with their beliefs. Yeah. Michelle, once again, can you write down your most valued 10 beliefs? Can you actually get really clear on them? If you had sat and have a conversation with somebody in a cafe and they said to you, hey, Michelle, what are your 10 most important or valid beliefs? Can you go bang, 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 bang? What are your beliefs? What are your understandings? Because that's true knowledge, when you can know it. That's one of my teachers, Yehuda, who was my teacher for many, many years when I was doing my psychotherapy training. He used to say, when you know, you can know. When you know, you know. And when you know something, you know it. And that's a really beautiful thing to do, to know. Because knowledge is one of the most powerful spiritual tools we have. Knowing, using the mind. The mind is so powerful. The subconscious mind is so powerful. The forefrontal mind is so powerful. So when we know, we know. I say to people, you really know your stuff when you can write a book. Or you can give a lecture. or you can share your learnings or your knowledge with another for a good time, a good hour, a good few hours, or run a workshop. That's when you know, without guessing, but knowing. Very, very powerful. Yeah, continual existence in the soul. So the question again is, what's your understanding of the soul? Because there's many different understandings of what the soul is. What is the soul made from? Where does it fit into the human image of the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, the astral, the soul? Yeah, really, really incredible questions. I love to delve into the study of the soul. There's a great thing for some of you, if you're not into it yet, the Global Healing Exchange. So my good friend Sharon White in Sydney has got if you just Google the Global Healing Exchange, you can sign up for a free magazine. It comes out 4 times a year, and I'm one of the expert writers. And we've just done some articles in the latest edition that just came out just last week on heart health. Heart health. So Global Healing Exchange, Sharon White. You can look it up on Facebook, and you can sign up for free to get the magazine. And I've got an article in there on heart health, and I talk about the soul. I talk about the different aspects of the soul, and in particular, I talk about the sentient soul, which is connected to the heart region. Yep. So it's okay saying something about the soul, but what's your understanding of the soul? Can you write about your understanding? Can you speak about your understanding? Do you understand the makeup of the soul? Because soul and spirit are a little bit different. So it's about getting informed. And this is what I mean by, if you stay on the journey on your path for 4 or 5, 6 or 10 or 20 years, and you delve into it and you do the study of it, then you can speak back on, my understanding or my belief or my knowledge around the soul is this, ... My understanding of spirit is ... My understanding of the physical body and the human being is ... And you have context, you have experience, you have wisdom, you have knowledge, and all those things. See, heart is the core of the soul. It's a great statement, but what does that mean? On the deeper level, not being discourteous here, but they're great statements. But have you got a clear understanding? Can you write a thesis on it? Can you write an article on it? Can you put a lecture on it? Yeah, because that's where we get one. We're on a spiritual path for many, many years. You get that deeper understanding. So for anybody now who's started on the path, fantastic. Stay on the path. Choose the path to stay onto. Name the path. Get clear on the path. The yellow brick road. It's one yellow brick road all the way to the very end. And if you watch The Wizard of Oz, as a movie, very, very deep esoteric movie of her journey. The 3 aspects of her journey, absolutely brilliant. The thinking, the feeling, the willing. The fear, the doubt, the hatred and love. All those principles of spirituality came into that story. The beings she met, the guardian she met to get through to the next stage, to meet the Godhead, if you like, or to meet spirit. It's an incredible esoteric story when one analyzes and takes it apart and looks at all the different trials and tribulations that she goes through in that story. It's a fascinating journey of a spiritual journey. The insights to that are incredible, and the depth of why those beings, the Tin Man and the Lion, and the Scarecrow, what they represent from a spiritual, esoteric perspective. Very, very, very powerful. And that you could study that movie for a couple of years and pull it apart and put it together as a spiritual journey. It's pretty fascinating. So, yeah, I love it too much. I love getting a dialogue. I love sharing aspects of the soul and the spirit and spiritual journeying, because my thing is I want people to evolve. I want the planet to evolve. I want humanity to evolve, and it will evolve when we work together, when we have a deeper understanding of spirit. Yep. Yeah, Wizard of Oz, love it. It's such a powerful. I've watched it so many times. Dorothy in those red shoes, absolutely an incredible esoteric story. Understanding, what is the lion representing? Finding that courage. Yeah, because he's in fear. And the anecdote of fear is courage. The Tin Man, had to find the clarity of thinking. Yeah, because he wasn't clear in his thinking. So yeah, and then just the story is so rich and so powerful. So look, we're coming to top of the hour. We've got about 5 minutes left. It's incredible how quickly this hour goes. I love my Thursday lunchtime life mastery shows. Absolutely love them. Love getting into this dialogue. So just for the last couple of minutes, if anybody's got any last moment questions they'd like answering, just please pop it up. Please go to my website, adrianhanks.com. Please go and do check out the workshop, the online workshop I have, which is the 7 conditions of spiritual development. I've also got some other programs on there too. I've got my life mastery program, and I've also got a mastermind program that I've got starting in a week and a half's time as well. So lots on there. Also offer some great one-on-one work as well and different things. So please go and check it out, adrianhanks.com. If you want to have a 30-minute consultation with me, please do check it out. I'm just about to jump in there now and change that to Calendar diary so you can book a session with me over the next week. And I really do look forward to connecting with you on a deeper level. So we'll be jumping in and changing that. I think you can still book in. I haven't checked it for a couple of days, but I think the dates are still there. But I will be just jumping in and getting that calendar set for another week because I do offer those 30-minute consultations to see where you're at right now in your life, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and all the other aspects. And then we ascertain, am I the right person to work with you? If you want to deepen your knowledge, deeper understanding, or work on some of your psychotherapeutic things as well. We've all got things to work on, myself included, and it's good to have people around us that we can connect with to actually break through into new paradigms. Because we are in the 21st century, we have moved forward, and life has got so much to offer us, and we've got so much to engage with in life. And sometimes it's about asking for that support, asking for some help, or sometimes asking to be a bit challenged. I know with my teachers and my healers, some people I work with, I like them to give me, Adrian, a bit of a challenge. Adrian, are you ready to do this week? My mastermind partner, Barry, we've been mastermind partners now for 8 years. We challenge each other all the time. Why haven't you done that? Why aren't you doing this? What's the fear? What's the blockage? What's the saboteur? And it's a very, very powerful to have people like that in one's life. So look, I'm going to send you blessings, send you lots of love. It's been a great hour. Love engaging. I'll be here again next Thursday and every Thursday to keep this show going. Please do let your friends know about it. Share it on your Facebook page if you want to. I think you can do it like a live party where you actually rewatch it and share it through your group. And love and blessings to you. And may you be blessed on your own spiritual development journey. See ya.